In today's video, we're going to look at section 6-1, solving inequalities by addition and subtraction. So remembering, as we mentioned in the past, what is the great thing about math is, and I'll put it right here on the screen for you, rules don't change. Okay, so everything we've done in the past is still going to apply here, but we just got to remember that we're dealing with something new, so we're going to add something in. So these are some addition property and subtraction property of inequalities. So I'm not going to read these out, but essentially what they're saying is, just like there were the properties with equations, is what you do to one side, you do to the other. So if you add c to one side, you need to add c to the other side. If you subtract c from one side, you need to subtract c from the other side. So, but the difference is with inequalities, we must graph. So some rules we got to follow. When we use a less than or a greater than symbol, we use an open circle on that number. And if it's a less than or equal to, or a greater than or equal to, we use the closed circle on that number. Then, some rules to help us know which way the graph points. If a variable is on the left of the inequality, follow the arrow. If the variable is on the right of the inequality, go the opposite of the arrow. So keep this information in your head or flip back to it later when you're working. And I'll go through a couple problems. So solve t minus 45 is less than or equal to 13. So just like before, to solve for the variable, we're going to add 45 to both sides. So we get t is less than or equal to 13 plus 45, that is 58. So now it's an inequality, so I need a graph. So I'm going to draw my inequality. Now, we don't need every number graph, so I'm just going to make an arbitrary 0 and then 58. Okay, so now we're looking at the inequality. It has the or equal to, so we are going to use a closed circle on that point, and then it is pointing to the left, so I'm going to go to the left because the variable is on the left side. Okay, that's the only reason. Okay, if it's on the right side, then I would have been going the other direction. Okay, and there's my answer. So 22 is greater than m minus 8, so I'm going to add 8 to both sides. So I get 30 is less than m. So now we graph. So again, arbitrary 0, go to 30. Okay, now, because it's just greater than, I'm going to have an open circle, and then the variable's on the right, so I go opposite of which way it's pointing. So in this case, it's actually going to go this way. And I'm going to do a little shade underneath. So there we go. There's my graph. Let's do another one. D minus 14 is greater than or equal to negative 19. So I'm going to add 14 to both sides. So I get D is greater than or equal to negative 5. So I'm going to draw my graph now. Arbitrary 0, and I go to negative 5. So again now, it has an or equal to, so I'm going to have a closed circle. The variable is on the left, so I follow the arrow. And there we go. Okay. So 5p plus 7 is greater than 6p. So now, just like before, variables are just like numbers, so I can move them around as needed. So I'm going to move 5p to one side. Okay, so I get 7 is greater than p. Now I can draw my inequality, or my graph. So arbitrary 0, and I go to 7. Now, the variable is, well, first off, it's an or, just a greater than, no equal to, so that means it's an open circle. Variable is on the right, so it means I go opposite. So it's pointing to the right, that means I go to the left. And there we go. So 9p minus 1 is less than 10n. 9n. I said 9p. So again, I'm going to move that 9n to one side. So I get negative 1 is less than n. I'm going to draw my inequality. So arbitrary 0, I go to negative 1. Now it has an it's just less than symbol, so it's an open circle. And then the variable's on the right, so I go opposite. It's pointing to the left, so I'm going to go to the right. And there we go. 5h is less than or equal to 12 plus 4h. So I'm going to subtract 4h from both sides to move all the h's to one side. So I get h is less than or equal to 12. So I got my inequality. So I got my arbitrary 0. Go to 12. It is an or equal to, so I got a closed circle. Okay, and now the variable's on the left, so I follow the arrow. And I'm done. All right, so Arina scored a total of 107.325 points in the 4 events of the rhythmic gymnastics. Alina scored a total of 81.3 in the club, hoop, and ball events. How many points did she need to score in the ribbon event to get ahead of Irina and win the gold medal? Sorry about that. I'm not going to try those names. I will butcher them. Okay, so now let's call X points needed. Okay, so Alina did score 81.300, and she needs more points. Now to get ahead, is that going to be greater than, or is it going to be less than? Okay, now it says greater, it says get ahead, so that doesn't mean tie, that means get ahead. So she has to get bigger than 107.325. Okay, so now we just follow our basic steps. We're going to subtract that 81.3. Okay, so after we subtract, we get X is greater than, we get 26.025. So then she needs more than 26.025 points to get ahead. Okay, and being a word problem, we typically don't graph our solutions because I don't know why, we just don't. So on a word problem, don't worry too much about graphing.